Some of us are outwardly successful, but inwardly feel unhappy and living a life lacking in purpose and meaning. The Necktie and the Jaguar by Carl Greer can help you discover what's important to you and how to go for it. For more information or to purchase the book, visit carlgreer.com. That's CarlGreer.com. Welcome to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality, a show designed to share spiritual insights with you so that you can comprehend the universe and how it functions. You are about to experience raised consciousness. This is a place where spiritual principles are shared with the goal of assisting you to expand your understanding of both the seen and unseen worlds. Luminescence Common Sense Spirituality helps you to discern the timeless truths handed down from wise sages through the ages, from the airy-fairy nonsense that is being taught today. Now, here is your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth.
Welcome to Luminescence Common Sense Spirituality, the radio show that disseminates esoteric knowledge and common sense spirituality. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, a creator of namology science, which is the ability to know all about a person's personality and the soul's purpose simply from the person's name. Now, the beautiful inspirational music you just heard is part of the music Shine by Dee L'Amour, and you can hear more of her music by visiting her website at deelamour.com, and it's DLEMOR.com. And as you know, we end each of our programs with her song Shine, because I'm just in love with that song and her voice. So our topic today is the 5 cosmic laws of the universe, also called the Buddhist niyamas, and what might be learned under each one. And our special guest today is Pat Robertson Rice. Now, Patricia, or Pat, as we all like to call her, Rice, offers spiritual counseling services that will allow individuals to obtain the missing piece of information needed to come to terms with any issue being faced, decide on a proper course of action, and finally move forward in life. Now, helping others move forward in the most difficult times in their lives is her spiritual commitment, and she is so good at doing that. Now, help is just a phone call away. She has written the book, Greatness Thrust Upon Us, and I had heard about Pat in 2007 when I was living in China and had a session there. And as I always like to share, is that she did the first part of her session, and I was blown away with just awe and the accuracy. And the second part, when I asked questions, I thought, yeah, she doesn't do so good on the spot with questions. And yet, not even a year later, when I moved back from China and I was going through all of my stuff to see, I could only bring back 2 suitcases worth, what could I leave behind? And I listened to that tape again, and every single thing she had said had come true, even though I didn't believe it at the time I heard it. She is incredibly accurate and very reasonable in her prices, and the information you get is just phenomenal. And so I love it when Pat gets to come join me on the show. So, Pat, welcome once again to Luminescence.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. It's my pleasure to be here. And hello to all of you out there.
And today we're doing these 5 cosmic laws of the universe. And you and I have had a lot of discussion on this. So let's start with law number 1, which some would call the law of inspired action, and others call just the law of reincarnation. Would you talk to us about that?
Oh, yes. So if we want just a textbook definition of reincarnation, it's very simple. It says that reincarnation is the rebirth of the soul into a new body. Well, that's very nice, except, we don't know why. What does this mean that the soul has to keep coming into a new body? So in order to answer that question, we have to see what it was that God had in mind. So God's universe is always expanding, always growing, and at this point in time, we look in the Bible, and they are talking about the creation of this planet Earth. And so we know that it was in 6 days and all of that. They separated the dark from the light and the water from the land, and they started making sea creatures. And this is the point when they had made all the animals on the earth. And we know that the animals are very beautiful, just gorgeous. The Siberian tiger is the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but then we have something as large as an elephant, as colorful as a parrot. And so it was on the sixth day, and they were saying, you know what, we made all those beautiful things down there on the earth, but nobody ever comes up here and tells us how they're doing down there now that we have created all this. So they went into a big conversation. So this would be God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, and the angels. And they said, okay, how are we going to get somebody back up here so we can experience the joy of what we've created? That's it, y'all. God wanted to experience what he had created. He's too busy up in the heavens to go down there every day and see. And so they decided that they would create a new animal. So in the Bible it says, in our likeness and similitude, meaning like us. So what did that mean? Well, it meant that this new animal was going to have a superior brain. It would not just go on instinct. It would have a brain, a superior brain, and it would have immortality. It would be able to come back up to the heavens and tell it about. Now, there was a lot of discussion about that, and finally they decided that it could not be higher than the angels. The angels were a special creation. They're full of nothing but grace and joy and love. And so if this being was going to be created, it had to be lower than the angels. And so they decided to make this new creation. And the only way it would have immortality would be if God gave some of his DNA, his thumbprint, his likeness, his touch, whatever you want to call it. Now, a soul, if you see it, I've been lucky enough to see one and then seen pictures of others and so forth. It's kind of silvery, but it's thin, and think about some spaghetti strands or something. And you know, you can't come down to earth and fry pork chops and have babies and drive cars if you are a mass of energy. So it was decided that we would have a quote-unquote earth body. The pH of the earth would be a body that would wrap around the soul. Now, the soul stays in the heart, and then we have eyes, the body that God created for the earth part of the soul's existence, had the hands and the eyes and the feet for walking and all of that. And you might say, okay, so God wanted to have us experience for him what it was like. But he had another intention there, and that was that if he was going to keep on creating solar systems and planets, and they say now, they think, now when I say that, I'm talking about cosmologists, they think we have 12 universes, not just one. I can't say that's true. I'm telling you what a lot of people are saying. So obviously he was going to need some more beings to help him in this huge expansion. And so who would be more likely to take into your business than your children? But we all know if you stay in nothing but perfection and happiness, you're not going to develop your character. So the earth was chosen to be the school. And so you and I, 7.5 billion of us down here on earth, we all come down to earth to go through experiences, go through lessons to shape our character, to make us into the being that God needs to help him exist, be in heaven and do his work. So we have been coming down here, life after, as it says, we have been reincarnating down here, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And Sharon and I had this discussion. No book ever says how many times you have to come. Some have as many as 1,000 lifetimes. Some say, oh, you don't come but 300, some say. So finally, I just took the number that's thrown out there the most, and that is that in order for us to complete these lessons, in order for us to, balance the left and right hemisphere, to connect with our soul group, to connect with our monad, before we can ascend, before we can decide that it's time, we've illuminated enough, then all of those qualities have to be met. And that is quite an undertaking. In India, they teach that we have 125 virtues that we have to master during all of these lifetimes. And in the Bible, they talk about the 10 Commandments. That's how we have to live day in and day out. And we have the fruit of the Spirit that is indicative that we are functioning under God's direction. And many other books talk about qualities of the soul. And so the reincarnation is basically that you keep coming down to this planet and coming through this making so that your soul becomes more educated, it learns the lessons of life, it learns how to deal, and then finally, here's a new point that a lot of people are not aware of. We are made out of carbon. If you sat in your chemistry class or your biology class and looked at the periodic chart, we are made out of carbon. Angels are made out of silicon. We're never going to be angels. But the point is, they were a special creation. But we have to get the illumination. We have to get the crystalline structure that will allow us to be in the heavens. In other words, we have to qualify. So on all of these lifetimes, every time we build our lessons, every time we learn more about spiritual law, like we're talking about today, our carbon cells turn into crystalline. And many of the books have said that when we can reach a point of 80 hertz, then gravity cannot hold us on this planet, and therefore we can ascend. And ascension means this is your last lifetime. You never have to have a body again. Your soul goes to heaven, and there you stay. Now, Sharon, is there anything you want to ask about related to this reincarnation law?
What really fascinates me is that there's a lot of talk recently that our bodies right now on the earth plane are starting to become more crystalline as a whole. And that how you can tell if your body's doing that crystalline change or whatever is that at first you need more sleep. And I hear a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, I need so much sleep anymore. And then your appetite decreases because the crystalline body does not need as much food or intake and able to exist. And that you actually end up with more energy when the whole thing's over. Are you hearing the same thing, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, those same words appear in all of the lists, and then they go on to say that your sleep patterns are being interrupted, particularly at 3 or 4 in the morning. So there's so much processing going on in your brain, that it has to just rest for a while. They also talk about crazy joint pain where the silicon is coming more into the carbon parts, the calcium parts of the body. And, Sharon, we're going to talk about this today in the last section here, but the fact that we are in the cycle now, we've had the mass information cycle, the emphasis on science, the factual stuff. And so now one of these big 26,000-year cycles is coming in again, and we're moving toward a huge spiritual revolution. So we're going to go from the facts and figures into wanting to be more in touch with our spiritual side. And we're going to talk more about that later. But as you're saying, the carbon moving into crystalline is part of the new fifth dimensional energy and chakras coming in. And that's something we'll talk about later.
Yeah, that's what I think is just really, really exciting. So the second of the laws, if we can just get started on that one, is cause and effect.
Oh, boy. All of us have lived through the result of cause and effect. But I always like to give the definition. And the definition of cause and effect is that we have an expression of divine order in the universe. Everything is perfect that God has created. However, if that's true, nothing ever happens by chance or nothing ever comes outside of the universal law. Well, in order to help people, Sharon, who are having a problem with this particular law, we need to understand that this law refers to the events that happen in our lives. And all of us have been through tragedies and traumas and things like that. But what the law is talking about, And all of us know the great inspirational leader, Tony Robbins. This is his basic mantra here. He said, folks, you've got to accept that when wonderful things happen in your life, you created them. So let's look what you did right. And when bad things happen in your life, you created that too. So we better take a look at what you did that was not such a good choice or a such good thing that caused this negative event. And so I'm sorry, but when people call and they're asking for counseling on all these horrible things, I say, this is a law that you don't understand here. This is something you don't see, that it's not the universe doing this to you. It's just that you personally are not making the choices, or either you are staying in a situation that is causing problems for you. Now, the universe tries to...
I would look at that as simply that we're not taking responsibility for our own choices, and saying that we're creating all of this.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to take our first commercial break out of the two of them. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back with more on the law of cause and effect.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Pat Robertson Rice is a magnificent spiritual counselor. She can help you to recognize your gifts and talents. How do you identify who you are created to be? Are you an artisan, an inventor, a manager, or something else? How do you identify your innate abilities when they are different from your family's, or from our educational system, or from the industries popular in your community? How do you identify talents that are hidden, yet completely innate and natural to you? Contact Pat Robertson Rice at spiritualbeginnings101.com for an illuminating journey about your life path.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 Food Banks strong.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. You're with Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and my special guest today is Pat Robertson Rice. Now, right before the break, we had started into the second of the 5 cosmic laws, and that is literally the law of cause and effect. And another way of saying it is, think about how powerful we are, that what we are causing to occur, we get to see reflected back at us, but we're the ones in the driver's seat. Okay, Pat, you're going to tell us more. We can't wait to hear.
Okay, so you were bringing up the point right before that the way we can change these choices is by taking responsibility. So the universe always tries to help us. And so I'm going to just say that sometimes you get a wake-up call from the universe. It's a positive thing. They say, look, you're not getting the message here. You keep doing this same pattern, and it's wrong, and it's causing you problems. So we'll get a wake-up call. So let's say a wife is home cooking supper one night, and the husband comes in, and he says, honey, look, we got to have a talk. So they sit down, and he said, I figured out today that we are $10,000 in debt on our credit cards. And we cannot go on because if we continue to just use a credit card when things come up short, we're going to be $20,000 next year, and that's going to be almost impossible to do. He said, so I'm going to come up and tell you what I'm going to do to help this situation, and I want to know what you think you can do to help us stop this right now and take responsibility for this debt that we've created. Well, they talk on, and the wife says, okay, I wanted to stay home with our kid, but I realize he's 3 days in pre-kindergarten, and let's get our parents to help us the other 2 days, and I'm going to go back to work. He said, oh, my God, that's great. That'll take half the debt out right away. And he said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go online, and I'm going to go to at night, and I'm going to go on work on Saturdays and Sundays. I'm going to apply for the supervisor job. I've been there 12 years. I've never gotten the credential. I've never gotten the accreditation, accreditation it would take to supply, and that'll give us $15,000 more if I can get that job. So right there, they have, as Sharon was saying, taken responsibility. That's all the universe wanted to do. Look, you got a problem. Become aware of the problem. Use your brain and take some affirmative action right here, and then everything is going to balance back out. Well, sometimes it's not money that the universe signals you with. You can go to the doctor, and the doctor says, Sam, how much are you drinking? Your liver is absolutely inflamed. This is serious. Oh, I'm just drinking a couple drinks every night. Sam knows he's lying. The doctor knows he's lying. He said, now look, you got a wife and kids. If you want to be here in 6 months, you've got to do something about this. He said, now here is a pamphlet on the AA, and here is a coupon for going to the gym and starting getting your immune system back up. And I want to see you back in here and make sure this blood test is a lot better than this. Well, guess what? Sam has a choice. That's his choice. The universe has given him a wake-up call. So if Sam continues to go to the bar every night and find his drinking buddies, and if he continues to ignore that fact, and he winds up in the hospital and needs a transfusion and it doesn't work, then the universe tried. The universe tried, and Sam had a choice. All right, let's say another type of thing that might come up for you, which is pretty common for women. You go to the doctor, and he said, wow, Nadine, he said, you've gained 20 pounds. And she said, I know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just self-medicating with food. He said, yeah, but let me tell you something. He said, your blood panel shows that you are pretty close to being in diabetes too. And that you don't want. You don't need to do that. So I tell you what I'm going to do. We have a nutritionist at the hospital that gives classes, and it doesn't cost you a dime. And I'm going to give you the schedule for the nutritionist, and I'm going to give you a coupon for the gym, and I'm going to suggest that you go over and start using some type of walking in the afternoon, or go to a gym or get a treadmill, and you try to take care of this before it becomes a problem. Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, she goes home and she gets the donuts out because she's upset, and she gets a slice of cake, and she doesn't do it. She does not take responsibility. And so this is what we have to learn, that in the cause and effect, we are the one in charge, but I want you to know the universe always tries. They'll put the right book, they'll have a right TV show, the neighbor will come by and cry on your shoulder and, oh my God, she's got the same problem, but she found a solution to it, and they try to help you. But it's a sad thing, but if you do not have responsibility then you are going to continue to have negative things show up in your life. Now, Sharon, what do you want to add to this one?
Well, I always look at it that a lot of times it's a lot easier for us to blame somebody else or something else instead of taking responsibility. But if you take responsibility that you created the problem, then you also means that you can solve the problem. If you blame it on somebody else, then you're the victim and you can't help yourself. And so it's easier to actually to take responsibility for it.
Yeah. And all of your psychology books will tell you that once you have an awareness, 90% of the problem can be solved if you take discipline and apply it. Doesn't matter whether it's financial or health or anything, you have to have the awareness. Sometimes the doctor gives you an awareness. Sometimes a TV show. Sometimes, a bill comes in. But I totally am in agreement with you that, the universe always wants the best for us. And they give us choices, but sometimes we just don't listen, and we keep on in that same pattern for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, it was really difficult when I did this, when I broke my leg and my ankle, to say, oh, I did this to me, even though I blacked out. And I thought, okay, I somehow created this unknowingly, but I did it to me, so at least we can fix it. Sometimes it's really hard for what we do to ourselves to say, oh, I did this to myself, Yep. But that's important to do also. Okay, We're going to start on the Law of Correspondences. What do you have to tell us about this third law?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the word. All right. So it's not a word we use every day. So what we're talking about is that you and I and everybody on this planet live in 3 planes of existence. We have a physical life where we have a house, we have a job, we have a husband, we have kids, we have dogs. We have a mental plane where we're always using our brains on our jobs and reading and watching TV and trying to solve problems and keep ourselves going. And then we have a spiritual plane where we are supposed to be down here helping ourselves learn the higher laws that we're talking about today and how to apply ourselves in the world. The problem is that these planes don't work in correspondence if one of them gets out of sync. So if the mental is out of sync, it might affect our spiritual aspirations, or it might affect our physical aspirations, or vice versa. So what the deal is to look at a very simple thing that it could occur in anyone's life. And if you're ever complaining to your friend about all the mess that's going on in your life, they'll say, oh, don't worry about it. Mercury's in retrograde. Everybody knows what that means. It means everything's going to be in chaos. All right, so let's take Mary Smith, okay? She's a normal person. And so she's at work, and she's got to go pick up her kids, and she can't find her keys, and she gets real frantic, and she said, oh, my God, I'm going to be late getting my kids. Getting my kids. So she flies over to the school, gets her kids. They're fussing because they had to wait on her. Now they're going to be late for soccer practice and all of that. So she goes home after she delivers the kids, and she has to get the clothes washed, and the washing machine won't come on. Then she said, well, let me start supper real quick. So she gets a call. She gets distracted. She burns the pork chops, and the peas come over on the table. And so she goes to get the kids. She comes back. They start fighting, and she just gets in a complete, just calls her kids out, says ugly things to them. The husband walks in the room, and he said, what in the name of God is wrong with you? And she said, maybe if you were home more often to help me, this wouldn't happen. Oh, my God, here we go. Well, she knew that night that she had done wrong in snapping at her husband, and she knew that she had done wrong in, saying ugly things to her kids. So she got in a tub, and she said, okay, what went wrong? The day started off fine. And all of a sudden, she remembered. At 11 o'clock that morning, her boss called her in, and he said, now look, he said, I know y'all worked on this marketing plan for 2 months, and he said, I looked at it, and it's not what I want, and I'm going to throw it out, and you're going to start all over from scratch. This was a shoddy job. Well, Now, she can't start crying in the office, and she can't cuss him out in the office. And so all she can do is what is appropriate when you have a boss is to say, well, yes, sir, I'm sorry that didn't work out. We'll get to work on something right away again. Well, she went back out in the office, Sharon, and she had to stuff that down. She couldn't start crying at her desk, and she couldn't start cussing out the people there. And so she just stuffed it down and stuffed it down and stuffed it down. And this is the problem with correspondence. When we get mentally and emotionally upset, it transfers over into the physical world, and then she has the key problem, and then she has the, getting mad at the kids, and then she has the husband getting in an argument with him. It happens every day, and nobody really connects that there is a law involved in this. Now, what's happened to us in this world last year with the pandemic is all of us in our mental, as we sat there and listened to these things on the TV and saw the statistics and the number of people that were dying in the middle of that pandemic, we all got very skewed in our mental. There was a tremendous amount of fear. And because people didn't have enough backup plans when they lost their jobs or their businesses closed, some of them were in lines to get food. And the banks weren't going to loan them any money. They were closed. So the problem is, all of a sudden, we have this huge emotional crisis that affects all of us physically, and we go into just absolute day-to-day fear. And then on top of the pandemic, we have North Korea getting ready to start a nuclear war with South Korea. We have Russia invading countries. We have China getting ready to go, all of them mad with us. And the whole world has lost God. There are no 10 Commandments being applied. There's no diplomacy being applied. It's all, number one, do anything you have to do to stay on the top. And our Congress, I'm sorry to say, did not seem to, accomplish a lot. And so here we are when all of our spiritual feelings should be working, all of our mental feelings should be working, and all of our physicality should be going along just fine. And Sharon, it was a grand mess.
Yes, it's been a grand mess. I think everybody agrees.
So the law of correspondence is kind of not working at this point. But I mentioned that I wanted to talk to you about something positive, because in 2012 we left behind that scientific and everything on the age of information, and if it wasn't a fact and you couldn't touch it, it didn't exist. And starting in 2012, we moved into a new cycle. And as I mentioned before, what's happening now is that we are going to recycle into the largest spiritual movement that we have ever seen. It's going to be a complete spiritual transformation here. The name of the energy, now let me explain something to you. The third dimension that we live in, our world, every day, in our house, in our car, at our business, our third dimensional energy system down here vibrates between 15 and 21. And obviously that's a low vibration because we look at the mess in the world, applying the laws down here. They're not working. It's a very low vibration. The fifth dimension is absolutely 14 points higher in vibration when it gets here. So the theme of these higher energies coming back to the planet, and you say, why? Because it's the cycle. It's a 26,000-year cycle that we're starting over, and the higher energies are coming back to the planet. And you say, well, when did we ever have them? Well, we had them during the civilization of Atlantis, and we had another extremely high-ranking civilization in Egypt. And we all know that. We've seen the pyramids. We've seen the complete knowledge they had of the star. I mean, what they achieved is amazing. But the point is, we're going back to having the ability to live in oneness. We're going back to where the physical balances out with the mental, and the mental balances out with the spiritual, where we are working on all facets of ourselves. And the definition of oneness, which is going to be the theme now, is when everything works together harmoniously.
And we are definitely in what is called the end times in the Bible, which is interpreted as the end of duality and into the beginning of oneness.
Yes. And the heart chakra is going to be a huge thing that I'm going to be talking about in another one. We are going to have an entirely different way to understand and express love than we do now, because we don't see a lot of it in the world, but you know what I mean. Now, the other thing I'd like to talk about is that there's another very promising thing that has been coming to our planet, and that is that the physical part of us, where our bodies get so sick, and as we get older, they age. We have had a huge movement toward the ancient world. We have seen just not typical, practice of medicine where they say, okay, take a pill or I'll cut it out if we're going to fix a problem in the body. This relates to alternative medicine. And we've, in the last 20 years, welcomed in acupuncture, which was something only that they did in the East. We've welcomed in some of our healing modalities of therapeutic touch and Reiki. We've welcomed in massage as a way to help the body get back into fitness. We've welcomed vitamins because of our soil depletion and so forth back. And now we are moving into a very wonderful and accepted by places like Duke University even, that there was a wonderful lady whose name was Louise Hay. She was a pioneer for us.
I love Louise Hay, and so I want you to hold on to that story for just a moment, because we have our second and last commercial break. Stay tuned, everybody, so we can find out more about Louise Hay when we come back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. The why is hidden in your name. Sharon Lynn Wyeth has created a scientific way of deciphering your name to reveal your contract for this lifetime. And your name even specifies the 7 areas that are subsets of your soul's overall goal. Your name identifies who you are to both yourself and others. What does your name say about you? Contact Sharon Lynn Wyeth at info@knowthename.com for your stunning name review.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. At the Equal Justice Initiative, we believe mass incarceration has to end. There is this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. We have to confront our history of racial injustice and commit to a new era of truth. There's something better waiting for us, something that feels more like freedom. Truth can inspire change. Please learn more at EJI.org.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. I'm your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and our special guest today is Pat Robertson Rice. And you can find out more about Pat at her website, spiritualbeginnings101.com. 101.com. Again, Spiritual Beginnings at 101.com. Okay, Pat, you were going to tell us about Louise Hay.
Yeah, we were talking about the law of correspondence, where the body goes along fine and matches with the mind and matches with the spiritual intent. And so Louise Hay was a counselor for part of her life, and she realized very quickly that when her clients came in with certain medical issues, like a heart attack or like appendicitis or something, she realized they were struggling with the same mental and emotional issues, and that these mental and emotional issues were causing, now remember that would be the mental, these mental and emotional issues were causing the physical body to be out of sync and against the spiritual law, which said to be peaceful. And so if I suggest you get any of her books, she talks about this, that they're all, to heal your body, you have to heal your emotions first, and then you can come to the physical. And so what she decided was, she published books, and she said, look, folks, here's a list of all the problems in your body. And if you're having problems with your liver, guess what? You better do something about your unresolved anger issues. And then she gave you the affirmation to heal that. If you're having cancer that has occurred in your breast, this has to do with not feeling nourished and backed up in your life. If you have ovarian cancer, it's about abandonment issues. If you have lung issues, it's about deep-seated grief and sadness that has not been resolved. And so she just opened the whole world. If you go to a naturopathic doctor, they're going to talk about your issues long before they try to give you, anything other than just some herbs or something to help with anger, if that's what your problem is connected to your liver. And so she went around the world. She only died 3 or 4 years ago, I think, and she went around the world tirelessly all her life, opening people to the concept that the body itself, the physical, becomes out of sync when the mental and the emotional and or the spiritual aspect is out of sync. Now, Sharon, do we have any more time, or we have to move on?
We really need to move on to the the law of inspired action or opportunity.
All right. So the inspired action is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I think we have all experienced this. And the inspired action has to do with this inner knowing that you have. All of us have these abilities to have these spiritual gifts, and the more that we raise our vibration, the more these spiritual gifts can open. And sometimes when, God wants us to go in a certain direction, we get an inspired action here. And so sometimes that's a friend calling you and say, man, I had a dream about you last night. I don't know if there's a message in there, or we might go have a reading, and someone says, well, now look, here's something wonderful that's coming towards you if you want to take advantage of it. Or you might read something in a book and say, wow, that's kind of something I would really like to do. So the messages come to us, okay? And so there's a big problem in getting messages sometimes, and that is that we need to understand that God has a timing. And that has been a problem in my life because I'm a go-getter, and if they tell me something to do, I just go out and do it, and then I wonder why it doesn't happen, as soon as I've finished it. And so Sharon was telling me a cute story the other day. Do you remember the example you told me about the girl that decided she wanted the guy?
Oh, no, but go ahead and tell it.
Okay. She decided it was time to find her a man, that she was going to get married, and she wanted to find the best guy. So the little person that gave her the inspired message that says, it's time for you to go ahead, her inner knowledge was telling her she needed to just go ahead and get on a website, on one of those dating sites. But she said, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to write a list of what the guy wants, and then I'm going to match it and make sure that I'm going to be on the same vibration as this guy, and I'm going to go out to the parties and go out to the bars and everything, and I'm going to find this man, and I've done all my prep work, law of attraction, we all know that, and I'm going to find the guy. Well, the guy didn't come in, okay? So finally, she said, all right, let me just go on that dating site. It's not what I wanted to do. And then, of course, when she went on the dating site, it was the right timing, just like they had indicated to her. And within the first week, she met the guy and married him. So we have to get the inspiration, but we have to know that there's timing involved in that. And we have to surrender to this guidance of the universe and go about trying to move into what has been given to us. Now, I had a very funny thing happen to me, and I'm sure Sharon can tell you a story too. It was so sweet, and I knew that the universe, the universe loves us, and they try to send us all the help we can. But my guide said, okay, we're going to move. You're going to have to move because we want you to work on starting another spiritual community. And I said, well, okay. So when they tell me something, I do it. So I said, Lord, I've lived in this house almost 20 years. I know it's going to take me a while. So I spent 6 months emptying out my house. Now, you know how hard that is when you've lived somewhere 20 years. And I'd been through 3 dress sizes since I lived there. So I had shoes to give away, clothes, all that. It took me 6 months. So then I said, okay, I guess I better get the house on the market. So I put a sign out in the yard, and I had a lot of people come because I had a really beautiful yard, and yard people, are very interested in that part of the house. And so we actually went through 5 dropped contracts. One lady's husband died in the middle of it. One lady got transferred on her job. Another lady didn't qualify, like she had said she would. And finally, I said, God, if I leave the house on the market much longer, they're going to think something's wrong with it. So I took it off the market. Well, guess what? One day, I'm going along in my life, and I get this information from one of my angels, and she says, put the sign in the yard tomorrow. I said, but I had it on the market. I mean, I've been off the market 3 months now, and, she said, put the sign in the yard tomorrow. So I went outside and put the sign in, and the next morning at 7:30, somebody knocked on my door with a full price offer wanting to close within a month. So it was God's timing, not mine. I was the one that decided to clear the house out. I was the one that decided it went on the market. But this inspired information that you get, you have to do it. When God's timing is right, it will all work. Now, Sharon, do you have a story to connect to that too?
I have so many, and we are almost all out of time, almost. It's always a pleasure, Pat, when you're on, and all of us always learn so much. Again, if you want to connect with Pat, and like I said, when I was in China, I was just amazed that when I listened to her tape later, 100% accuracy, and I'll tell you, she's continued to amaze me over the years. So spiritualbeginningss101.com for Pat. Pat, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see.
Ryan, it's always a pleasure, and hope you're feeling better and stronger every day.
Well, thank you. I am. I'm just learning a lot more patience for how long everything takes moving around with the leg in a cast. Anyway, this is Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and I'm so appreciative of all of you spending our time with us. Next week, we're going to have Pamela Osley on the show with me. She has recently been on some really big shows, and she's slammed, and so you're not going to be able to get a reading with her, but she's still giving classes, just like Pat here gives classes that are just awesome, but Pat's still giving readings. And Pamela's going to be on, and she has written very successful popular books, Life Colors, Love Colors, Infinite You, and Make Your Dreams Come True. But she can literally see the auric field around somebody in the colors and knows how to interpret them. And so she's going to be with me this next week. God bless her. She is so busy, but we get to get her because she and I were both over in Australia at the same time working for an organization that had pulled us over there to give some talks. And that's how we met years ago. And so she's wonderful and going to be joining us next week. So you want to get that, come to that show also. And Pat, is there any quickie sentence that you want to sum up and just that you wished everybody had learned today or got a new brainstorm today, an idea?
No, something we didn't talk about is the importance of learning to give from the heart. And once you learn that, Sharon, then at that point you will have nothing but abundance in your life from that point on.
Now that I think is really important to know.
Yes, and so maybe next time or whatever we can talk about that. How do you go about learning to change giving from just because they told you to, go to church, put it in the collection plate, to giving from the heart, and how that opens up your entire life to the fifth dimensional energies.
Wow, that's a real key. I'll have to keep that in mind for the next time you're on. So again, this is Sharon Lynn Wyeth. So excited that you came and joined with us today. And I would also like to add that if you'd like some of the spiritual understandings that I have gleaned from my team that works with me, I was on Spiritually Raw yesterday. And so those of you that have a subscription to Spiritually Raw, or you can just go for 1 month for free and check it out, or it's 3 days for free, something like that. But it's really an inexpensive investment, and they interview some interesting people. And we talked about spiritual concepts and ones that I have not had an opportunity to talk about on radio shows previously. So you may want to go to Spiritually Raw and look up that interview. All right, we are out of time. We will be ending our show with the wonderful music by Dee L'Amour called The Shine. This is Sharon Lynn Wyeth signing off.
So long ago, gazing in the mirror, an image of an angel smiling back at her. No wounds or imperfections, just beauty and its glow. Her laughter and her heart, a reflection of her soul. And I want to shine like the sun and smile to stop the rain. And I want to dance with the wind and believe in dreams again. Of light stroke the canvas of her, the light slightly dimmed, her reflection unseen, and all